Hello, friends, and welcome back to the next episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Today we'll be speaking with Andrew, who is the owner of Dexcom Diabetes and the father of a daughter who was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes right when the COVID lockdown began. Nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan. Don't forget to save 40% off of your entire order at CozyEarth.com. All you have to do is use the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout. That's JUICEBOX at checkout to save 40% at CozyEarth.com. If you are the caregiver of someone with type 1 diabetes or have type 1 yourself, please go to t1dexchange.org/juicebox and complete the survey. This should take you about 10 minutes and will really help type 1 diabetes research. You can help right from your house at t1dexchange.org/juicebox. When you place your first order for AG1 with my link, you'll get 5 free travel packs and a free year's supply of vitamin D. Drink ag1.com/juicebox. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Touched by Type 1. This is my favorite diabetes organization, and I'm just asking you to check them out at touchedbytype1.org on Facebook and Instagram. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the continuous glucose monitor that my daughter wears, the Dexcom G7. Dexcom.com/juicebox. Get started today using this link, and you'll not only be doing something great for yourself, you'll be supporting the Juicebox Podcast.
My name is Andrew. I'm the father of a daughter with type 1 and the owner of Dexcom Diabetes. My wife and I started that company in 2020, and it has sort of become our new identity, if you will.
Is it a full-time job now, or is it still something you do to supplement your work?
So I do work a full-time job and another career. I won't say it's not a full-time job because it has kind of grown into that, but it is not our main revenue stream, if you will, right? So we do that on the side.
So tell me a little bit about your family. There's you, your wife, your daughter. Is there anybody else?
Nope, just the 3 of us, and we have 3 dogs as well. So my wife said after our daughter was diagnosed, she said, I think I'm done. There's just so much stress involved in raising a child with type 1 that she wanted to be able to put all of her focus and effort into making sure my daughter has the best care possible, and she doesn't want to have to split her attention. Yeah. So I agree with her wholeheartedly. You know as well as I do that raising a child with type 1, there's a lot of hurdles to encounter.
Fair amount of work, that's for sure. How old is your daughter?
She is 7. She'll be 8 in October.
When was she diagnosed?
May of 2020, and it was the week that they announced COVID lockdown here in Michigan, where we're from. So that added a whole new level of stress beyond just the diagnosis, but also the limitations put on the hospitals at the time for one parent in at a time and that kind of thing. So definitely made it complicated for us.
Am I losing my mind on years? Was COVID not 2019?
In 2020 is when our COVID lockdowns hit here. I think, depending on what part of the country, and I think there were different lockdown restrictions at different times. But
oh yeah, you might have got a Midwest lockdown. I got an East Coast lockdown.
Yeah.
Ours was immediately. They were like, "What's that? Get in your house." And I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. No. Yeah. For us, it was kind of like, "Hey, it's spreading. Hey, we're looking at all these other states that are having lockdowns." And then finally, they said, "Okay, now there's mass panic. People are mass buying bread and milk, and the stores are empty." So
that's get inside for a little bit.
Yeah, that's when they started that. And I work in the transportation industry, so we, for my career job. We were considered essential personnel. So I still had to venture out and about even amongst all of that mess.
Yeah. So she's diagnosed just as this lockdown is happening?
Yes. So the kind of leading up to the diagnosis, my wife had said, "Hey, I'm seeing these signs. Our daughter she's drinking a lot. She's going to the bathroom a lot. She's just doesn't look healthy." And I said, "Oh, she's probably just growing." I did the dad thing, you brush it off a little bit and say, "Yeah, it's normal. She's just growing. She's hydrating. It's no big deal." and I was at my day job working overtime on a Saturday, and she sent me a photo of my daughter, and her face is white and her eyes are sunk in. She's got black circles, and she said, something's not right. I said, okay, I'm leaving work now. Call the pediatrician and see if they can get us in on a Saturday. So my wife called. They said, yeah, we'll meet you at the office. So I drove home, grabbed my wife and my daughter. We jump in the car, drive directly to the pediatric's office. The doctor meets us in the room and says, I can smell ketones from the door. He said, I'm pretty sure that we're dealing with diabetes. Let's do a blood test just to check. And their meter came back and said, high. She said, okay, go get in the car. Don't go home. Go straight to the hospital. Go straight to the ER. And then they'll do a battery of tests there and confirm. But I'm pretty sure it's diabetes. Right. So we jump in the car, head right to the hospital. My daughter didn't even have shoes on because we weren't expecting to have to go anywhere. We were ill prepared, didn't plan for anything. Show up at the door and they say, "Oh, nope, one adult." So yeah, it was panic.
But could you put some shoes on one of these people, please?
Right.
Jeez.
Right. So yeah, so my wife, of course, she's, at the time, my wife and my daughter really have this special bond, and as mothers typically do, and so my wife decided to take her into the ER, and I waited out in the parking lot for hours, probably 8 hours, waiting to, kind of get an idea what's going on. She's keeping me updated via text. Thank goodness for technology. Then I ended up leaving to go get her an overnight bag. As soon as they admitted my daughter, I said, okay, what do you need? Send me a list. I went and got my wife a change of clothes and all snacks and stuff, and went and got some cash so she could use the vending machines if she needed, and picked up dinner on the way back through. They had a nurse come down and meet me at the door, and then they carted it all up to the room for me. So yeah, it was very complicated.
No kidding. Oh, so how quickly that's just a handful of years ago. So what happens that makes you think, like, I'm going to start a company that like make adhesives for, that's just an interesting leap. I'm trying to figure out how that happened.
Yeah. So the leap started something like this. We get back from our diagnosis. We're a month in. We are fortunate enough to be given the Dexcom G6 as the CGM. And my daughter goes to put it on. She puts her first one on. She's 3 years old at the time. And she looks at it and she says, I can't go anywhere with this on. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, people are going to look at me funny. I have this thing on my arm. Nobody else my age has this thing on their arm. I try to coach her, and we try to teach her. Everybody has something they're dealing with. And this just happens to be what your thing is. Right. And it's manageable. And this is a great piece of technology. It's going to help you. But try explaining that to a 3-year-old. So I ended up finding a version of a shield online, and I had a 3D printer, so I printed one. Yeah, I printed it out of purple material. And as soon as I showed her that, her reaction to putting her Dexcom on completely changed. She went from, I don't want to wear that, to showing everybody, pointing to it. Check this out. I got purple. I got a yellow one. My dad's going to make me more colors. And just seeing the attitude shift, I knew that there was something to this shield.
Okay.
And so I reached out to the maker of the shield and said, "Hey, I really like your product and your design is something that I would like to be able to sell." And he said, "No, this is kind of my thing. You go make your own." So my wife and I went back to the drawing board. We redesigned from the ground up, and essentially we believe we created the better mousetrap with the G6 design. And shortly after posting, Facebook blew up. "Hey, can you make my kid one? Can you make my kid one?" And so it started as a hobby. I mean, we were just, you could PayPal us a few dollars and we'll make you one, no big deal. And then we had people asking for one for the Omnipod and for the Libre system, and it just kind of exploded from there. We went from one printer to 16 3D printers currently.
Jeez, do they just run constantly?
Almost. So the issue with manufacturing with 3D printing is that you have limitations for how much you can fit on a print bed or at a time, and then you have to go down there and manually remove those items, and then you can print more. And what we've got now with the 16 of them is we kind of have this flow where we have a set number of stock we have hung on the wall so we can fulfill orders. We have enough colors now that as the wall starts to empty out on a particular color, I'll go load that on one of the printers. My wife runs them during the day, and then I do all of the maintenance and things in the evening after my daughter goes to bed.
Today's episode of the podcast is sponsored by Dexcom, and I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about the continuous glucose monitor that my daughter wears. the Dexcom G7. The Dexcom G7 is small. It is accurate and it is easy to use and wear. Arden has been wearing a Dexcom G7 since almost day one of when they came out, and she's having a fantastic experience with it. We love the G6, but man, is the G7 small. The profile, so much closer to your body. The weight, you can't really feel it. And that's coming from me, and I've worn one. I've worn a G6, I've worn a G7. I found both of the experiences to be lovely, but my gosh, is that G7 tiny. And the accuracy has been fantastic. Arden's A1Cs are right where we expect them to be, and we actually use the Dexcom Clarity app to keep track of those things. That app is built right in to Arden's Dexcom G7 app on her iPhone. Oh, did you not know about that? You can use an iPhone or an Android device to see your Dexcom data. If you have a compatible phone, your Dexcom goes right to the Dexcom app. You don't have to carry the receiver. But if you don't want to use the phone, that's fine. Use the Dexcom receiver. It's up to you. Choice is yours with Dexcom. Dexcom.com/juicebox. Who does the order processing and the shipping and everything?
We do. We kind of tag team it. We're finding as we grow and we're getting on more platforms, like we have our product now on Amazon and on Etsy and our website. But with like Amazon orders, as we grow, the orders are coming in so rapidly that we're packing daily. We used to pack like twice a week. But if we do that, we'd be loading our mail carrier with 200-300 items, and that's not fair to them, and it's not fair to our customers either. We find out
to have to wait.
We really want to get these to people as soon as possible. So we're typically, if you order, sometime between 9 p.m. Eastern time, 9 p.m. Eastern time, and about 10 a.m. the next day, we're packing it to be shipped that day, that 10 a.m. day, right? So
Okay.
If you order on Friday at 9 p.m. between Friday at 9 p.m. and Saturday at 10 a.m., it's probably going out Saturday at 11.
Oh, wow.
When the mail carrier comes. We see the change in what this does for kids and for parents, and making diabetic living a little easier. And we don't want them to have to wait a week for us to process. Mm-hmm. So we typically don't.
So you make the grip shield's the first one, is that right?
The G6 Grip Shield is the very first one that we made, and we've tweaked the design several times. And then we evolved and got into Omnipod Grip Shield, the Libre 2 Grip Shield, and then as technologies progress with CGMs, we've also moved into the new CGMs, the Libre 3, the G7. There's some additional new products that are coming to market, especially in the European market right now. We're trying to get our hands on some of those so we can design around them.
Yeah.
Because there's obviously a need.
My daughter's worn Omnipod Eros, Omnipod Dash, Omnipod 5. Sure. She's worn G6. She's worn G4. She's worn G5. She's worn G7. In my life, I've never thought that any of this was necessary, but I see people wearing it constantly. So what is it doing for people that I guess we don't seem to see the need for? Because it has to be something. Yeah. Tell me about it, please.
Yeah. So there's really three things that I make the claim our Grip Shield does. And then there's a fourth item out there that our customers claim that I have no data to back up. So I won't make the claim, but I'll tell you what it is anyway. Mm-hmm. So the three things that I make the claim that we claim our product does and that our customers see benefit from. One, it provides the ability to change an overpatch anytime throughout a cycle without accidentally tearing off your device. Because the way the flange on our Grip Shield sits over the adhesive for a device, your overpatch will never touch your device, which means if you're out swimming and the patch starts to peel and looks kind of ratty and not very good looking, then you can just peel it off. Grip Shield comes with it. You put the Grip Shield back on, put a new patch, you're fresh and set to go.
Oh, I see.
So there's a huge benefit for people that work outdoors, for people that are sweating a lot, that swim a lot. Summertime is obviously our busiest season just because of that.
Yeah.
But that's one benefit.
Well, that makes complete sense. I don't even know why I couldn't think of that by looking at it. But
sure.
But so it basically goes over top and creates this like exoskeleton shell around the device, and then you're basically, when you put an overpatch on, then you're really holding that down, not touching the device at all. So if you want to rip that off and put a new one on because it got wet or because it started to get dingy or whatever, you're never ripping at the device. Okay. Oh, that makes complete sense. How about that?
Yeah, so that's one benefit. So the second claim that we make is that it provides bump protection. So we can't tell you how many times people say, "Hey, I bumped my Dexcom off on the door of my car,"
Sure.
or "I was putting my shirt on and I ripped it off on accident. It got caught and snagged on my shirt." So the grip shield has this vertical wall that is about the same height as the Dexcom or the device, the CGM or the pod, and it disperses that bump, that accidental bump, so that you don't dislodge the device. So Omnipod, is can be pretty bulky depending on where you put it, and so it would kind of glance that blow and prevent you from tearing it off. So that's the second thing, which is great for young kids who are rambunctious and playing, and that's kind of what we geared that one toward.
Okay. Well, did you say there were 3 things?
Yeah. The third thing is it adds a nice pop of color. That's really it. The third one is we offer, right now I think we offer 12 colors, so you can color coordinate. And then we started last year doing multicolor, so you can actually customize your grip shield to whatever you want. So we've seen like people order colors for Clemson, and we're like, I wonder if this is going to go to somebody that's a Clemson fan, because it's going toward South Carolina area, and it's their colors. Or we see orange and blue coming all the time for people that are in Florida. I'm assuming that's the Florida Gators, right?
Yeah. How about that? Oh, that's super interesting. Then you have a couple of other items too, like the wall mounted insulin caddy for the refrigerator. I feel like I've seen that. I feel like I can't get away from that actually on social media.
So that product there stemmed specifically from another Facebook post where somebody had showed a picture of their insulin vial on the floor. Their kid had left the compartment door open, and they swung the door open really fast, and the insulin vial hit the floor and broke. Mm-hmm. And they were, of course, insulin is not cheap, and there was a kind of a complaint online about that, and a lot of people were chiming in and saying how bad they felt about it. And I looked at my wife and I said, "Why do we store it in the butter door? I don't understand why it goes in that compartment. I mean, I know why I can't go anywhere else, because it gets shuffled around the refrigerator. You won't be able to find it. But how come there's nothing out there?" So I started doing some research and found out there's lots of organization things that people have created. And I don't want to negate any of the makers out there. Like since 3D printing's become very popular, you could go to any craft site and find, a tray that goes inside on a shelf or inside the butter compartment. You can find things that hang on the door shelf of your refrigerator. There's all kinds of options. Mm-hmm. But there was nothing that was easy and simple to organize to. So I created one with a flat back that you can adhere to the wall of the refrigerator and stick your insulin vials in it. And now you'll know exactly how many vials you have, where they're at. For us, we rotate them. So as I pull one out of the front, I push everything forward. So, first in, first out. So I'm always using the older vial of insulin first.
Yeah.
And it helps me keep organized. We know exactly where they're at. And that's kind of how that came about. It was really about convenience for me. And then again, posted online, and people were like, "Can you make us these?" And we saw that there's a need for it. So we started making them.
How long does it take to, I don't know, like a grip shield, for an example, how long does it take for the printer to make it?
So depending on the grip shield, obviously there's different sizes. So something like a G7 is around a 20-minute print per G7. I typically do like 6 on a plate at a time. And so it's right around an hour 15 to spit that whole plate out. Mm-hmm. If you get into something like an Omnipod, it goes up because it's a lot more material. It's a lot taller. And there's ways to like speed that up. We could make it faster, but then the quality goes down.
Okay.
And so I don't want to sacrifice quality just to push more product out. I'd rather have a higher quality product. The end game is to get out of 3D printing altogether, and to let a manufacturer injection mold them for us, which will be an even higher quality. It'll be faster, less time for me to do that, so I can focus on growing our business and working on all of the other background items that come along with owning a business. And get it.
It was absolutely going to be my next question. Like, why don't you get these made somewhere, man? But
it's there. But the issue that I see right now is that technology has moved so rapidly in the CGM in the pods. Well, pods have been kind of the same for a while. They're the same shape because Omnipod's smart and doesn't want to recreate the wheel from scratch. But as these products are coming out, every single time you want to have a mold made, it's tens of thousands of dollars to have a mold made. So there's a very high expense up front, and I'm trying to figure out how to justify spending that without having to increase pricing
Right.
because I don't want to be more expensive. I want it to be affordable. That was our whole goal when we started this is, I don't want to sell it for $25. That doesn't make sense to me logically.
Mhm.
The value is probably there, but I don't need to make $1 million off of one person. I want the Walmart mentality where I make $1 off of everybody,
Yeah.
and that's the way I'll make my money and make it affordable. So
also, it's not like they're disposable. They must last for a while, right?
they do.
Yeah.
So my daughter, when she was on the G6, of course we have one of every color because we make them here, but she would rotate
the guy?
through yeah. She would rotate through them, and we had some that were 3 years old. She was still using the original ones on, and so I have customers that have them. They had them for a year and a half, almost 2 years. I had one customer say she had hers for 2 years and it finally broke on her,
Right.
or it got. Another customer said she had hers for a year and the adhesive got so sticky, the buildup was gross, and she wanted to replace it. So they do last quite a while. And they're compatible with a lot of the patches that are already on the market. So like we team up with the Sugar Patch out of Texas and given us their secret sauce recipe and how they manufacture their patches, so we can make the white ones and can include them with our grip shields. But we also know that like Skin Grip is another big name out there. They're compatible with our shields. We make our shields to be, I'd say, very narrow walled so that they can fit a lot of patches without trimming right out of the box.
When I look at them and they have kind of like the fin cutouts around the border, is that so that the adhesive can go there, or is that for flexibility?
It's for flexibility and it's for breathability. If you had a solid flange there, that plastic that contacts your skin would get really sweaty and gross, and it just wouldn't be comfortable long-term wear. So really the gap there is to let moisture escape and then create that flexibility as well, so that you have freedom of motion.
It's going to breathe through the overlay patch. Most of them.
Correct.
Some of them are thicker and not as breathable. I've seen a couple that, are thicker.
I am the guy, I'm always in the pursuit of perfection. So we're constantly updating our designs a little here and a little there. And as we get feedback from customers about, I really wish that this, and so we may go revisit that if we hear it from 2 or 3 customers that are not talking to each other, right? That are totally strangers, and we hear that feedback. We take all of that feedback from a review, from a message to us, from Facebook comments as we're sorting through our groups that we're a part of, and we see people commenting about our product. My wife and I will both look at it and say, "Oh, they said that. I'd never really thought about that." So, some of them are tighter, like the Libre 3 has smaller gaps in it than let's say the Dexcom G7.
Right.
And that's really because I haven't had anybody come back and complain about it, so I haven't made any changes yet.
And the overlay patches that you sell on the site, did they come just in white, or are there colors there as well?
So because we partner with the Sugar Patch, we have an agreement that out of our site, we will only sell them in white. And that's because they do a lot of custom printing. Like I think Ashley there has, I think she said something like 3,000-4,000 designs that she has available on her website you can pick. So I don't want to take their business. I just wanted to be able to supply a quality patch with our product. And that's kind of the agreement we came up with, was they would allow us to include the patches. We make the white ones. And then if people want custom color or whatever, they would go to the Sugar Patch to get a refill. And
you have those manufactured, or you get them from Sugar Patch?
Sometimes we get them from Sugar Patch, and sometimes we're cutting them here. Yeah, we have a machine here that we can cut patches with. It just depends on how many hours are in a day and what I have going on. If I can manage to sit there and cut patches. In fact, I ended up having to contract my father-in-law to cut patches for all of our stock because we sell so many. I can't keep up on my own. So he comes over and cuts the patches. We include 2 with every single grip shield, and he'll cut them and pre-pack them in our packaging. And then when the grip shields are ready, we'll stuff them into the bag and zip them up, heat seal them, and then ship them out.
Interesting. So this is not like obviously hand cut. You're not trimming with scissors, but
no.
But although, boy, that would be, you're not charging enough if you're doing that.
Right.
But I mean, so is it like a press, or is it a stamp? How do you cut them?
It's a machine cutter. Think along the lines of a craft cutter, right?
Okay.
But obviously, you got to know there's a lot involved. I don't want to go too far into detail because it's kind of like I said, it's the secret sauce for the sugar patch.
No, don't give anything away. I'm just trying to imagine if your living room is full of machinery or something like that.
No. So I live in Michigan. We have a basement, and we have a pretty large area of our basement that is dedicated to Deck My Diabetes. So I've got shelves with printers on it. I've got shelves with stock on it. I've got a setup for shipping. I just put up some slat wall, and we keep our stock on. So like I keep an example. I keep like 24 of our G7. Any colored G7 grip shield is on the wall at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously there's just pegs full of them. Yeah, that room, that's all it's dedicated for. I think that pretty much explains it. We spend a lot of time in that office on a daily basis. If we're printing pretty heavy, a printer's nice because you can set it and forget it. Like you set it and then an hour you come back.
Yeah.
So throughout the day, we might spend 2 hours total, but then we got to pack orders and we have to prep the Amazon shipments for Prime, and so I mean realistically in a week between the two of us we're probably spending 40 hours down there as a part-time gig.
So is this a thing you can continue to do? Like, is this a pace you can keep up?
Yes. Well, no, not really. And that's why we need to get into injection mold, because the 3D printing the printing itself isn't a lot. It's the maintenance that comes with running a machine as much as I do. If I looked at some of these machines, I mean, I probably have racked up thousands of hours of print time on each one. About every 6 months, I basically have to refurb them. So they're like on a schedule. So 6 months out, I'll do printer number 1, and then I'll do printer number 2 the next month, and printer number 3 the next month, so that I'm kind of spreading it out. But yeah, we can't maintain our growth cycle if we continue to manufacture ourselves. And to me, that's as a business, that's a good thing. But as a father of a diabetic, that makes me a little bit sad because it tells me that the diagnoses are still ramping up.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of families who are having those scary moments where they get the diagnosis and they weren't ready for it, or their lives are being flipped upside down and they're looking for support. So like I said, as a business, it's great. I honestly would hope that someday there's a cure for diabetes and I don't have a business then.
Yeah.
That would be my ultimate goal.
Of course. How does your daughter feel about that you're doing something around diabetes like this?
Depends on what day you ask her. She loves the fact that we're helping people. In fact, she's very involved in the business. She will help us pack orders. She helps me with the dowel products that we sell. So we sell like dowel lookalikes. They call them the Warrior Buddy line, which was designed as a coping mechanism for my daughter because she didn't want to rotate her Dexcom site to different spots. So now she can make her dowel look like her and change the site at the same time.
Andrew, let me help you a little bit with your Michigan accent there, okay?
Yeah.
Doll. I'm afraid people are like, what is he talking about? Like a wooden dowel?
A doll.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, no.
Yeah.
So you have, oh my God. So you have little like devices for dolls, but it's everything. It's like you have a Medtronic set. You have, looks like a Dexcom, Omnipod. You have them all. But that's insane.
Yes. We started with the G6 because that's what we were familiar with. That's what my daughter had. And, again, it was one of those things like, oh, hey, I bet you people would like this. So we put the G6 online and suddenly we had questions. Hey, can you make a Libre one? Can you make a this one? Can you make a that one? Can you make a T-Slim? And we started growing them. And Medtronic the Guardian version is fairly new to us because we had somebody ask and I made a design and sent it to them. And basically said, hey, I want some feedback. I'll send it to you for the cost of shipping. And I never heard anything back. So I just kind of let it sit. And we didn't think there was a big demand for it. But then we started getting these inquiries and emails from people saying, hey, I don't see a Medtronic one. And my kid's being left out because they're on Medtronic. That's what my insurance pays for. So I think last year we finally redesigned and made it a little bit larger. Now they work with patches. We used to use like a double stick tape we would send you, and that just wasn't quality. So now we actually use the same patch material that you would get with the sugar patch, and that sticks much better. Turns out.
Dolls. Look at that. Hey, did the companies give you a problem with this or no?
No, we may need to address at some point changing the name to say lookalike. I have to look and see what the title says now because because we're constantly changing things for SEO. But yeah, I have not had any issues with it for companies coming after us for using the name in the device name. I really think
they shouldn't.
Most of them, I think most of them are really looking at it as if it's more normal for a child to wear it, then they're more likely to select our product. So it's actually a benefit. It's to their benefit to have other things out there.
I can't imagine they haven't tried to buy some of them from you by now.
It's possible.
Yeah, that's something. Look at that. It's so adorable and tiny.
Yeah,
it's just really cute.
Really what it came down to is trying to normalize wearing the device. If you look at our tagline, every once in a while in our website, you'll find our logo with a tagline on it, and it says "Deck Out and Show Off." And the goal here is really so that we can normalize the device wearing and stop hiding those devices, and make it easier for kids to see that it's okay, right? But really, because we have a child, our mission is geared more towards children.
Yeah.
And that's what the doll thing is for. And I can't tell you how many people email us and say, I got your Warrior Buddy kit. My daughter is thrilled that her doll looks just like her and has a device like her. And she's doing device changes at the same time we are. We're going to have to order more refill pack patches because we keep moving the device around.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And that's what we want to hear, because that's why we do it.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, we've met before. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah. We met early on when our company first started. I had heard about the Juicebox podcast and gave you a call. And
we talked. Yeah. I remember that.
Way back when we talked about kind of what the device, what the space looks like, and diabetes in general, because we were only 3 months into it. You gave us a lot of really sound advice. We started listening to the podcast and picked up a lot of your catchphrases that we still use around the house, like "crush it and catch it." If you don't have a T-shirt line, Scott, you should have one.
I don't know if I do or not. I think there's T-shirts somewhere, but I don't pay a lot of attention to it.
Yeah. But then we met last year at Touch by Type 1.
That's what I remember that for sure. Oh, it's wonderful. So I put this kind of like the call out. I think I did it on LinkedIn. And I was just like, if you have a company that helps people with diabetes, you can come on the show and tell people about it. Because I started getting into this like headspace where I can't sell you. I sell ads to big companies. Like if I try to sell you an ad the way they pay, like you're selling things $12 at a time, it's not going to benefit you. You know what I mean? Like it's never going to work out. And if we do something where it's like, I get a couple of pennies off of, I'm like, I don't want to, I'm not involved. I don't care. And so like, I don't want to do that either, but I would like to shine a light. But I also I couldn't figure out how to do it because I don't want, and I can't have the podcast turn into a billboard. Like it can't be 2 weeks of people like I make this and I make, because it's just, first of all, it's
never ending.
Yeah. It'll never stop. Right. Like, so, but I did just want to pick a couple of people out, and I kept looking around and I thought, you know what, let them pick themselves. Like, and so I just kind of put it up online. Honestly, truth be told, that's how Beta Bionics ended up on the show this week.
Okay.
Because they reached out and they were like, we'd love to talk about our pump. And I was like, great, come on, And I almost did that purposely because I'm sometimes stunned that like companies that aren't advertisers don't want to be on the podcast. Like I always wonder, like, did they think because I don't buy an ad, they don't want to, like Scott doesn't want to talk about Libre or like something like that? Like, because that's not the case. I don't know. It feels like maybe that's the idea in some people's minds. And I thought, I'll just do this so I can say a couple of times, if you want to come on. It's absolutely fine. It gets to the point where people are like, why won't you have someone on to talk about this? And I'm like, what do you think? I'm in charge of who asks to come on the podcast? It's like, I can only answer the people who reach out. And there are plenty of people I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I'll tell you the one thing I can't do, Andrew, is books. If every person who wrote a children's book about diabetes, the podcast would be over. At first, everybody would be bored to tears, and then it would be a book club. And I just don't have I don't have the content space for that. And that is one of those things you don't realize how many people are doing that until you're one of them. You show one of them some kindness, and then all of a sudden it's like there's a line out. It feels like I don't mean it like this, but it feels like you fed a cat. Tried to go out your back door the next day and you're like, whoa, where'd you guys all come from? I'm really glad you did this. And I don't have to keep you much longer. I just wanted to hear about the business and hear about what it does and why you're doing it and what it provides. And that's it. I just want to put it up and hopefully people will come take a look for you. So it's deckmydiabetes.com, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
You can find us at deckmydiabetes.com. That would be our website. There's an About Us section. You can learn a little bit about our family. You can see photos of us attending some JDRF events, things like that. And then there's a page for each one of our product lines. If you want to learn more about a specific product line, Grip Shields explains what it is, how it got its name, Warrior Buddies, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, there's the Shop Now link. And you can go visit the site and shop. And we're constantly running promotions and specials and really just trying to find ways to market to different people that are in different stages of their life, right? So some people just don't have the finances or the income to afford things. So, sometimes we run a sale and it'll be like a $10 Grip Shield. And I don't make anything when we do that, but it gets them out there for people to try and wear, and they're not super expensive. So when we do something like that, that's all announced on our Facebook page.
Nice. So follow on Facebook, Instagram, stuff like that to get those kind of updates.
Absolutely. Yep. Facebook and Instagram are the two primary that we're on. We also have a TikTok, but I don't think we're super active in that. Emily, my wife, handles all of the social media stuff. I tell her she's my marketing director.
I like earlier.
As well as the boss, the CEO, the CFO, whatever else she wants to title herself, right?
I chuckled under my breath a little while ago when you were like, we have to change these things for SEO. And I thought I'd love to go back 4 years and say SEO to Andrew and see if he doesn't look at me and go, what are you talking about?
Yes. Well, and what's crazy is like owning a business. I've learned so many things that I didn't know I needed to learn. And one example, the Warrior Buddy line, the toys that we produce, we found out that if you produce a toy, you're supposed to get certified through the Child Protection Safety Agency or CPSC. I don't even know what the acronym is. There's a whole line of testing you're supposed to do on toys. When we first started, we didn't know that. So I had to go through a process and figure out, how do I get a third-party tester to test the materials I'm using to make these, and how do I ensure that they're safe? And so it was like a 4-month process, and we did finally get a CPSC certification. They're tested safe, they're lead-free, phthalate-free, and that's something I didn't know I needed to know until we crossed that bridge. And so imagine that, but times the entire business.
Yeah,
it's been an incredible growth. As an owner of a business, I now understand more about how important reviews are. I now like to leave reviews if I've had good service. Turns out people really like to leave bad reviews, but very few people like to leave good reviews. They don't see the need for it.
Do you want me to read you my bad reviews, Andrew? They're hilarious.
Yeah. Well, and you, I'm sure you see it as
yeah, don't worry.
If you have a bad experience, you're probably 10 times more likely to leave a review than if you had a great experience, right? And unfortunately, that doesn't really give valid information as to whether or not the company met expectations of the majority of people.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things now, because I know that my behavior has changed. If I have really good service somewhere, I'm leaving them a review. A great example, I just had some concrete poured. The guys did a fantastic job. They're going to get a 5-star review because I really appreciate the effort and the attention to detail they put into the concrete work.
Yeah, trust me, that's happened to me as well.
I think every small business, every business understands that, but if you don't have a business, you don't understand how important positive reviews are to a company and how they ultimately affect the growth of that company.
Yeah.
So maybe a little shout out is, if you've had good experience with a company or you really enjoy listening to Scott's podcast, leave a good review. That's, that will help other people find it. And it changes the algorithm and how Facebook presents us, how Google presents us.
Yeah. The things I know now that I didn't know before about stuff that you would just be like, some of it's absolutely mind numbing, down to, I put a post up the other day for end of the month. I do a review of what was on the podcast this month, because the truth is, I probably put out more content in 30 days than most diabetes places put out in a year. And so they can get lost sometimes for people. So I'm like, look, here's a recap of what's going on. And the person who compiles the recap list for me said, hey, you haven't put that post up yet. I said, oh no, I'm waiting for Thursday, because Thursday's a stronger Facebook day than other days. And and by the way, my coverage on Facebook is very, very consistent. The podcast has a private Facebook group that is pretty much 24/7 busy. I guess ability or time to interact is different on certain days. Like putting something up on Monday, you won't get a lot of responses from. And then there are certain days of the week and then certain times of the day. And like, that might sound obvious to people, but I didn't know that when I started doing this. Like, I like, what? You know what I mean? Like, it's better on Thursday after 4 p.m. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I didn't even want to be on Facebook. Like,
right.
You know, I got an email this morning from someone like, you know, we want to pay you for these ads, but you have to take this letter to your bank. And I'm like, I don't, why do you want me to do that? I'm like, I have other advertisers. No one else asked me to do that. Well, this is an anti-phishing agenda that we're working on and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, you think it's just me. like I don't have, you either get the podcast or I go to the bank and get the letter. I don't have both options available to me today. You know, I got to package this stuff or I got to do this. It's crazy.
Right. Well, our customers are very surprised to find that it's my wife and I that do this. Like for the way that the company is presented, we intentionally try to give you the mom and pop attention, right? We want to be a mom and pop shop, small business attention, but to give the big business experience, right? We want you to be able to come and get a quality product, get a good price, be able to get all the information you want from the website so you can make a wise decision. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, it's if you send us a Facebook message or an email, it's my wife or I that are replying to you, you know? And it's the same thing. Like, I can only do so much in a day. And sometimes we have to say no. I had somebody the other day ask if we could make a custom color insulin mount. And I said, I'm sorry, I do not have enough time in a day to do that. You know, I
don't know where my shoes are. I wore this pair of shoes last week and I took them off and I don't know where they're at. I don't have any time to even go look for those. I'm getting ready to do something with Sanofi diabetes to like kind of raise attention about being tested for antibodies and stuff like that. And I was working with their PR company and they said, like, you know, just give us everybody's email so we invite your whole staff to the meeting. And I was like, the what?
Staff, what's that?
I was like, don't worry, you've invited everyone in the business. They're all coming already. She's like, you don't have a PR staff? And I was like, that's me. And she goes, what about content? I went, me. She goes, what about the ads? Like, who's going to write that? I'm like, I'll do that.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'm glad it looks bigger from the outside, which is usually how I take it. I'm like, oh, it looks like a real business from the outside, you know, which is great.
Well, and you know, we found things like I have to start unloading things because I work 40 to 50 hours a week in my regular career. And then I'm doing that as well. And there's only, like you said, there's only so many hours in a day. And I don't want to spend all of it not spending time with my daughter. I only have a certain number of years before she's an adult. So I make sure to carve out time for her specifically. When she goes to bed, that's my time to kind of work on the business stuff. So like one of the things that I recently unloaded was a lot of our graphic design. And I'm very fortunate that my sister-in-law is a graphic design artist. And so I contracted her business, her small business. You know, when you buy from our small business, you're supporting her small business. You're supporting the Sugar Patch as a small business. I've told my father-in-law he should probably make a business for all the stuff he does for me, and then he can write more stuff off. I don't know. But I mean, that's kind of the way it works is, you know, as a small business, we like to support small businesses and you help across the board. But yeah, I've had to start unloading things because I just can't do it all.
Right. I hadn't thought of it that way, but the person who edits the podcast is the father of a child with type 1. So, you know, the money he makes to edit the show goes to his family and his small business. Really, you know, his recording studio. It's fantastic. I hope that I can get to the point where there are other people I can bring in like that, truthfully, you know, so it's always the goal.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Andrew, did I forget to ask anything or did we cover, do you think?
I think we've covered everything. And Scott, I really appreciate having me on and allowing me the opportunity to talk about, you know, what our mission is and what our vision for our company is and how we can help people. You know, again, not to negate, there's a ton of options out there. We know that diabetes is not a one size fits all or one size fits most. Mm-hmm. But hopefully, you know, the products that we offer can be helpful to some people. Hopefully more than less. But we really strive to be in the community, to walk alongside people as part of the community, and not just be a company that's going to be after the dollar. Right. So again, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Also, you hustle, Andrew. I love that because, you know, make hay while the sun shines. This offer ain't forever. And, you know, like, and I kind of went out in the world and I was like, I don't know if it didn't come across this way, but if you were here, what that what that note actually said was, I'm in a pretty good mood right now, so I'm I'm going to ask for people to come on the podcast. Like, I don't need more content. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's not a thing like where I'm like, oh my God, I got to get some people on so I have something to put up. Like, I don't have that problem.
Yeah, we saw your message go out, and I was like, I know that when I talked to you, probably it's been almost 4 years now, right? Almost 4 years ago. Initially, pretty much the conversation we had was, you're just starting out, and I don't see the value in adding you to my show. And I was like, well, I totally understand. I agree. And here we are 4 years later having a conversation, and that just goes to show how the growth in our company and how we've been able to benefit people and make our business known, as well as your generosity to opening that up and having this conversation.
You don't have to say that, but you're very welcome. And by the way, it wasn't the value; it was I just thought the juice wouldn't be worth the squeeze for you. I didn't think you'd. I thought you'd spend money and not get it back. That's what I was concerned about.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Because
and that probably was a true statement at the time. At the time, we were just starting. We didn't have two nickels to rub together. Everything basically goes back into the business anyway.
Of course. So, well, listen, if you're ever looking for a marketing plan, and once you get it out of your basement, you let me know, and we'll look at getting you some ads. So,
perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, hold on 1 second for me. Thank you so much. The conversation you just heard was sponsored by Dexcom and the Dexcom G7. Learn more and get started today at dexcom.com/juicebox. Touched by Type 1 sponsored this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Check them out at touchedbytype1.org on Instagram and Facebook. Give them a follow. Go check out what they're doing. They are helping people with type 1 diabetes in ways you just can't imagine. Don't forget, if you're a U.S. resident who has type 1 or is the caregiver of someone with type 1, visit t1dexchange.org/juicebox right now and complete that survey. It will take you 10 minutes to complete the survey, and that effort alone will help to move type 1 diabetes research forward. It will cost you nothing to help. Are you starting to see patterns, but you can't quite make sense of them? You're like, oh, if I bolus here, this happens, but I don't know what to do. Should I put in a little less, a little more? If you're starting to have those thoughts, if you're starting to think, this isn't going the way the doctor said it would, I think I see something here, but I can't be sure. Once you're having those thoughts, you're ready for the Diabetes Pro Tip series from the Juicebox Podcast. It begins at episode 1000. You can also find it at juiceboxpodcast.com up in the menu, and you can find a list in the private Facebook group. Just check right under the featured tab at the top. It'll show you lists of a ton of stuff, including the Pro Tip series, which runs from episode 1000 to 1025. When you support the Juicebox Podcast by clicking on the advertisers' links, you are helping to keep the show free and plentiful. I am certainly not asking you to buy something that you don't want, but if you're going to buy something or use a device from one of the advertisers, getting your purchases set up through my links is incredibly helpful. So if you have the desire or the need, please consider using Juicebox Podcast links to make your purchases. The episode you just heard was professionally edited by Wrong Way Recording. WrongWayRecording.com.